Hi guys, my name is Megan. Welcome tonight to this presentation that Jim and I have prepared for you. I'm the counselor here at the center, so my job is basically to talk to kids all the time, which is the best job ever. And then I'll let Jim introduce himself.
My name's Jim. I've been a counselor for about 25 years. I was the director here for 8 years at the center and continue to counsel, and have been hired by the center during the COVID period here from May till December to work along with Megan, and 95% of it has been via Zoom, but enjoy working with kids and families as well.
Yeah. So we are both parents. I'm a parent of almost 11-year-old and an almost 10-year-old, a boy and a girl.
I've got 2 kids, a daughter and a son, and 5 grandkids. So I'm not going to say their ages because that gives my age away. So.
Okay. Yeah, so tonight we just wanted to help you guys with some sort of tips and tricks for dealing with kind of the stressful time that we're in right now, and how to help your kids and your families through everything that's going on. We're just going to go kind of through our presentation, and then afterwards we'll invite some questions and try and get some discussion going, because that's probably my favorite part. I don't like being up here talking at people. I'd rather just dialogue with you guys. So make sure that you hold on to your questions till the end, and then we'll try and have some good conversation. So have you guys thought to yourselves in the last 6 months, is this really happening? This COVID, no schools, what is going on? Our kids have gone from super excited because school is canceled to we don't get to go back this year. When am I going to see my friends? And I am only going to school every other day. We're no longer just parents. So we have to add teacher, counselor, principal, rec coordinator to all our roles. And I don't know about you guys, but I've felt pretty disconnected, frustrated and tired, scared when I look at what's going on in the world, and unsure of how to do all the things that I need to do well for my kids. So hopefully you feel the same way, and that's why you're here. We need to help each other. We need to get perspective and connect with each other and use our community. So there's no concrete answer how to make your kids physical distance, whether or not you should send them back to school, how you should react to each and every different thing that's going to happen throughout this pandemic, because no one's ever done this before. So everything is new. But we've all been brave, and we've all done new things that we didn't know how to do without a guarantee of how they're going to work out. We've all stepped outside of what we know and find comfortable to do things that are hard. And some days we feel like we're nailing it, and some days we may feel totally lost and defeated. And that's normal. It's normal to think you got things going really well one day, and the next day you have no control and you don't know what's going on. So just so you guys know, whatever you're feeling right now is totally normal. I think all the parents I've talked to are feeling kind of the same, like confusion and not sure how to deal with things, not sure how to help their kids through this. And everything your kids are feeling is normal. So that's why we need each other and our community to walk each other through these weird times. So parenting is tough, and the challenges that come with something like COVID make it even harder. But the good news is that current research is showing that children who have supportive relationships with their parents can not only withstand a little stress, but have the potential to build resilience for future difficulties. So how do you cultivate the type of supportive parent-child relationship that builds resilience in your kids? We're going to talk about 10 pretty simple but effective tools that you can use to build connection and help your kids and yourself during this time.
The first one is positive praise. Notice the things that your kids are doing, things you appreciate or things you want to see more of, and thank them for that. When we're in close quarters, as long as we have been, we tend to focus on the things that they're doing wrong or haven't done properly. So instead of trying to Instead, try picking out the positive behaviors or the things that they have done without being asked. Like, thanks for tidying up your toys. Thanks for saying please. Thanks for bringing your dishes to the counter or to the dishwasher. Noticing the positive things your kids do and praising them will increase those positive behaviors and build connection between you and your kids.
The second thing is to respond, don't react. I may giggle because I'm not the best at all of these things, so this is a reminder to myself as well. But when your kids have behaviors that are outside of their normal behaviors, things that you don't appreciate, or things that they're struggling with, try to recognize the feelings behind their behavior. So don't just focus on what they're doing, but maybe why they're doing it. And then respond to them by taking their feelings seriously. So talk about their feelings, and then you can address the behavior kind of after that. Our kids' job is to lose their minds, to show us what they need. They go into fight, flight, or freeze. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but they go into that mode when they're stressed. So our job is to respond by helping them regulate their emotions. So calm down, figure out what they're feeling. And the tough part is that our kids can only learn to regulate their emotions if they're first dysregulated. So they get dysregulated, then they learn to regulate. So this is where we come in. We're wired to connect and co-regulate. And the only way to teach our kids how to do that is to show them. We can't tell them, we have to sit with them and help them regulate their emotions. So one thing is when our kids are babies, most of us do this naturally. Our babies cry, we hold them, we cuddle them, we rock them and feed them, we sing to them. We do all of these things to help them calm down, to regulate, to get back to like a normal, calm place. But they need us just as much when they're 6, 8, 10, 12, I would say even teenagers. When we sit with them and help them regulate their bodies, they develop what scientists call as neural pathways in their brain. So I kind of like to think of it like tracks on a highway in the snow. So your car tracks on the highway, they'll create new ones to help them regulate themselves. So even though they can do so many things by themselves, they still need us to help them regulate over and over and over, which can get annoying. But eventually then they're gonna have access to those tracks on their own and they can regulate themselves. I got a lot of talking at the beginning. So sometimes the best way for us to come back online or for them to come back online and get out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode is to have a drink or snack. Now, as a parent, when your kid is throwing a meltdown, you don't really want to reward them with, hey, let's go have a snack, or do you need a drink of water? But that being said, it actually calms their physical body down. Then you can kind of work with what is their behavior, what are they feeling. So they can't learn to process consequences until those emotions are regulated. One way to do that is belly breathing. Have you guys heard of belly breathing? Yes? Okay. We're gonna practice. So belly breathing just helps to bring down your physical state so that you're calm, and helps your kids to become, or to get them into a place where they can regulate their emotions and start thinking with their brain instead of just their emotions. So everybody, I just don't like the microphone. You can put your one hand on your belly, and then one hand can just go in your lap. And belly breathing, you actually want your belly to expand. So normally we try and hold it in, so everyone thinks we're fit and slimmer than we are. But with belly breathing, you want to push your stomach out. So you're going to take a big, deep breath in for a count of 5, push your belly out, hold it for a count of 4, and then we're going to let it go for a count of 10, if you can. That's a long blowout, but okay. So we'll go in for 5, hold, and then out for 10 really slow. So if you can walk your kids through that, do that over and over for even a minute, that'll help bring their physical body down, calm them down, and then they can start thinking better. And then you'll be able to deal with whatever the behavior is that brought you to that place. So when you start talking about what's going on for them, be curious. I know for me, sometimes I want to tell them how they're feeling. Well, you look really mad, or you're really upset. But to just ask them instead, hey, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on for you right now? I notice you're frustrated. Can you help me understand how you're feeling? And some emotions that we might see, like especially with kids going back to school, might be anxiety, anger, sadness, frustration, confusion. Those will be the emotions, and then the ways that looks could be just struggling to get up and moving in the morning. If you have teenagers, that might be them, although they do that anyways. But when they're more stressed, they sleep more. They might isolate in their rooms, yell at their parents and siblings, have a lack of focus on their tasks, or just have their emotions really close to the surface. So lots of crying, yelling, slamming doors, and rude comments. Anybody else's kids do that? Please nod. No, nobody else's kids are screaming at them? Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Well, but in a stressful time, those are things you might see. One of my favorite ways to deal with that is to not deal with it. So if I have a 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old daughter, she gets rude sometimes, will kind of be snarky. And there's times when I just ignore it. I just don't respond. And then there's times when I'll offer choices like, hey, I notice you're upset right now. You can go to your room and you can come back when you have a better attitude, or we can sit and talk about it. And sometimes she just pieces out and goes and sits in her room.
Okay, the third thing is time out. We're at our best when we are calm and regulated, when our whole brain is online. When we are angry and frustrated or physically agitated, it is more likely that our reactions will escalate to a stressful situation. So take a time out so you can parent with love and emotional regulation or stability. Hand parenting off to your partner if that's an option, or go outside for a breath of fresh air, take 10 deep breaths, to give yourself space to parent with a clearer mind. When we are mad, upset, or frustrated, or our own kids are, that is not the time to discuss anything. Instead, you might say to your child, Johnny, I am really feeling angry and upset. You're frustrated and agitated, and I'm afraid right now if we discuss this, I'm going to say something I'm going to regret. So I think we need to take a time out. Let's take 30 minutes. We'll come back. You calm down, I'll come down, and then we'll try and process our thoughts, and hopefully we can calmly discuss what just happened. It's important for you to both respect and allow the other person to take some time to cool down and to process, even though you may want to talk about it right now. But always make sure you say a specific time when you're going to discuss it, so it does not get swept under the rug and forgotten about. And when our brains are fully back online, we are better able to use all of the skills we have available to us. COVID-19 is a time of chaos. We don't know about our jobs, our health, our finances, so it's essential to make sure we are emotionally regulated or stable before we engage with our kids.
The fourth thing is to plan just a little. Having a little bit of the day planned if you have kids that are younger or kids that are going to school every other day. I think that's just in the high school. But it'll help your kids be able to predict what's going to happen, which gives them a sense of safety and control. So when the day has some predictability, kids know what is expected of them and how to behave because life is normal. Knowing what's coming in a given day can reduce their anxiety and decrease fighting amongst their siblings or with you and your kids. During stressful times, we often struggle to control things around us to help us bring down our anxiety. So while it's healthy to create and stick to routine during times of stress, be careful about being too strict. It's important for kids to experience some control over their own lives as well. So make sure you give them choices, involve them in developing new routines and rules, and include important activities in your schedule that they have some choice in. You can choose things that are important to your family and have your kids work through some of those things each day. So things like chores or learning a new skill, creative projects, or physical activities are some of the ideas that children can choose to do. If you give them choice of things that they'd like to do, it strengthens their sense of control and self-governance. Planning tasks such as chores or homework in between activities that they pick also is a good idea. That increases pro-social behavior, which is just like how you want them to behave. So if they have a choice and they get to kind of mix that in with what you want them to do, they're gonna behave a little better. Creativity is also a super positive coping strategy that helps to reduce anxiety, depression, and stress. So being creative helps us manage negative emotions and also helps us process trauma. And additionally, being creative can bring about feelings of accomplishment and pride. So I don't know, how old are your kids?
9.
Not perfect, 9?
16 and 10.
16 and 10, okay. So you can be creative with all those ages, different ways. But things like for the younger kids, crafts, puzzles, scribbling, organizing things if they like to do that. And then older kids, maybe cooking, building things, baking, sewing, making music, woodworking, things that you can do with your hands. If you can mix some of those things in, it's really good for your emotions.
The fifth thing is to set loving limits. While your children need to experience choice, they also thrive within limits. Limits or boundaries show our child that we care about them. Maintain an attitude of being kind but in charge while setting the limits and following through. Kids are not inclined to limit themselves, but they are built to test the boundaries you set for them. So be ready to calmly follow through on your limits or expectations of them. Make sure to prepare the kids if there are new limits or if limits change. That way they know what to expect and they're not caught off guard. For example, you may say, Johnny, you can have 45 minutes of video time now. You can play for 45 minutes, but when the time is up, I don't want you to fuss. I don't want you to make a scene or beg for 5 more minutes. Can you agree to do that? You maybe even want to have Johnny repeat back to you what the expectation was. So I got 45 minutes to play my game and I can't fuss or complain about it when it's up. Yeah. So when you do that, that way you know that he's heard and understands exactly what the terms are and what the expectations are when it's over. So when the time is up, and if he does not respond the way that he should, then you can try and give Johnny a do-over. And when kids push or ignore your boundaries, give them a few seconds to think about their behavior and the offer to give them another chance to respond in the agreed manner. So, for example, Johnny, you know that's not okay. Let's try a do-over. Let's run that back again. How would you like to respond? There will be times when you may feel resistance or pushback from your kids, and this is the time to check in with them and see how they're doing. Rather than strictly enforcing the limits, it's important to keep in touch with how your kids are handling life and what they're experiencing so that you can create the space for their emotions and don't try to fix them. So 4 good questions you can ask them are, tell me more. What's your biggest worry? What am I missing here? Can you please help me to understand why you are reacting or responding that way? The key is to focus on the relationship and connection instead of fixing things or punishing.
And the 6th one, this one's going to make me laugh because I just did this. The 6th one is to give good directions. If you want to increase the chance of something being done the first time you ask, make sure you give good directions. So you got to be close to your kids, make eye contact, ask them to do a specific task in a specific time with as few steps as possible. For an example, it would be, please put this game away and then come to dinner. If you wait 20 seconds and make sure that you get a response, if you don't, ask again, Sam, can I get an okay cleaning up the game? It's dinner time. So you want to make sure that the direction is realistic too, given their mood and their energy. So if they're tired and worn out, asking too much, you're going to get a negative reaction. You can also try using a when-then statement if your child isn't responding. Sam, when you clean up the game, then you can choose to go to the park after dinner. So they know what you're expecting and what they're going to get after. And I'm only laughing because we just moved. We never had a dishwasher before. And I went home in between work and this presentation, and I opened up the dishwasher and it was not loaded in a way that made any sense. And so I got upset and I'm like, who doesn't know how to load a dishwasher? But my kids don't because I never told them how. So I never gave them any directions. And then I have expectations that they're going to be able to do it properly when I never told them how to do it. So I was kind of laughing at myself.
Good. The seventh one is repair and reset. Everyone can lose their cool and react to their kids with harsh words or strong emotions. During a conflict, this is the time for the parents to take the role of the repair boss and initiate reconnection with their children so everyone can move forward together. As the repair boss, find the right time to approach your child after the conflict. And again, as we mentioned earlier, give yourself and your child time and space to cool and calm down. Then approach them and ask if you can talk about what happened. Apologize for your words, actions, and outbursts without excusing any of your behavior. There are several reasons why as parents that we need to choose to apologize and forgive. We are the adult and the role model in their life. Whether our words or actions are good or bad, they are watching and following every one of our moves. So apologizing is a great way to model appropriate behavior. Whether you feel you're 1% wrong or 99% wrong, you choose to initiate and apologize for your behavior. An example of a good apology for a parent is, Johnny, I'm sorry I screamed and yelled at you when I asked you to clean your room. Can you please forgive me? An example of a bad apology, Johnny, I'm sorry I screamed and yelled at you when I asked you to clean your room, but I asked you 5 times, and if you would have done it right the first time, I wouldn't have yelled at you. Okay, as soon as we say but, our apology is void. Okay, there cannot be a but when we apologize, because then we are just shifting the blame, and our apology comes across with very little sincerity in it. So apologizing is humbling as a parent, but again, we are showing our kids we are human, we're going to blow it from time to time and make mistakes. So when we apologize, it enables us to maintain open and healthy relationships with our kids. So talk about your feelings and how they led to your behavior as an example to your child. Focus on your actions being the problem, not your feelings. Show your kids that mistakes are an opportunity to grow and change, not a time for the shame, guilt, and the defensiveness they may be feeling. Then focus on listening to your child, really listening. Ask questions like, what happened? What was that like for you? What could I do differently if I had a do-over? What could you do differently if you had a do-over? While you should apologize to your child for any inappropriate behavior, never force your child to apologize to you or the other people involved in the conflict. Forced apologies serve to gain the benefits of the apology in that they help with closure or forgiveness, but it does so without the understanding of the impact of the behavior on others, or true remorse for the behavior, or their desire to repair the damage. Rather, set the example with your apology and encourage them to think through their own behavior and consider trying to repair the relationship by asking, what did they do? How did it make the other person feel? What will they do differently in the future? This way, kids can think of apologizing as a win-win situation where they experience empathy, repair the relationship, and cooperate towards a better solution, instead of a situation where they lose face by admitting to their own wrongdoings. A good enough repair after a conflict will lead to a stronger emotional connection and improved repair skills. And when a repair occurs, both people can reset and end up feeling good when they're together as well as when they're apart.
The 8th one is my favorite. It's love on them. When we're stressed, that's not usually our go-to, but if you can hug, give high fives, kiss, cuddle, and hold hands, research shows that physical touch helps us manage stress. It lowers the heart rate, slows our breathing, decreases stress hormones, and boosts the immune system. When times are stressful and kids are experiencing big emotions, they need more affection from their caregivers to help them regulate. If you have teenagers at home who don't always like hugs, they might welcome your affection one day and then the next day not want you to touch them at all or breathe in a certain way at all. Continue to ask them if they'd like a hug or find different ways to connect with them physically, whether it be for mom, a pedicure or an arm wrestle or a back rub or whatever. Just keep the doors open for the day that they really need a hug but don't want to ask you.
The 9th thing is be open and available. Connection is more important than excellence. I'm going to repeat that. Connection is more important than excellence. My father told me as a kid growing up that he loved me, but he spent very little time with me. So my understanding of the word love was very distorted and confusing. And to me today, the word love is spelled T-I-M-E. When you spend time with your child, it enables you to be available to your kids for questions or expressions of emotion. Even if you don't have all the answers, be honest and listen to their concerns. Your presence will help them tolerate the future, the unknown. Be honest with your kids. Give them age-appropriate information about things such as returning to school, and be open about your own emotions. Showing some of your emotions to your kids helps them to see it's okay to have feelings and gives them the opportunity to demonstrate how to manage them. For example, your child may notice that you are stressed, tired looking, and weary, and when they ask you, "Hey, what's wrong?" instead of smiling and saying, "Nothing's wrong," maybe tell them, "Well, because of the COVID-19, my boss has had to let a few people go, and so my workload is quite a bit heavier than it was. So I'm feeling a little more tired and pretty overwhelmed at times, but I figured out if I spend an extra hour a day that I can get all caught up, so I'll be fine." So again, you are teaching and modeling to your child how to handle frustrations and emotions. When we look back on this pandemic in the future, we will remember the emotional tone in your home and whether we felt supported, connected, and settled. We will recall the way our family interacted, what kind of activities we did together, and how we felt about ourselves.
And the last one, number 10, is take care of yourself. In order to be able to take care of your family, you need to take care of yourself first. With the increased stressors of the pandemic, taking care of your own physical and mental health is more important than ever. Attend to your physical health by drinking plenty of fluids. I'm going to sound like a doctor, but it's like super important. Eating healthy meals, getting enough sleep, exercising each day, and practicing mindfulness. So exercise increases the production of chemicals in your brain that increase your mood and provide a calming effect on the nervous system. Have you guys heard of mindfulness before? Mindfulness meditation, that sort of thing? Okay. I can't describe it really in a quick sentence, but being in the present in a way where you're not judging yourself. Very, very basically. That kind of a mindset can reduce stress, lower your blood pressure, strengthen your immune system, improve your sleep, and improve your overall brain function. Attend to your psychological, such as your emotional and mental health, by sharing your concerns with others. Notice the positive things and express gratitude. Help others around you. Get outside. Be patient and gracious with yourself. And practice mindfulness and/or meditation. And if you're interested in that, you can talk to me about it after. There's some really good apps that help with that. Having a mindset of thankfulness and gratitude increases positivity, increases mood, strengthens the immune system, improves blood pressure and heart functioning, improves empathy and communication, and improves personal relationship. Also super important, stay connected to your village. So keep your kids connected to their people, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents, people who are going to be able to give them that extra sense of safety and security.
So what do you do if your child seems fine? Keep checking in. Keep watching their behavior and their body language and listen to them. Also watch for delayed reactions. During stressful times, it's normal for the brain to shut down the emotions in order to focus on the essential functions to help us cope. Children may become quiet, they may say they are fine, and they may carry on like there is nothing bothering them, but watch for the emotions that are lurking underneath the surface.
So what emotions might you be looking for? Alarm and frustration are the big two. They're most commonly experienced during a stressful event. So alarm or fear is one of them. They may be experiencing alarm as a result of separation from their friends, loss of all the things we've lost through COVID, connection, school, sports, activities, family. Some people haven't been able to connect with their families. Kids may be experiencing frustration because things just aren't working the same as they normally do. And what does this look like? So these emotions can take a while to surface, like Jim said. It could be weeks or months kind of down the road that your kids start showing signs of fear or frustration, which usually leaves us confused and unable to connect their behavior with what's going on. Stressful situations can lead to nightmares, temper tantrums, aggressive behavior, irritating behaviors such as whining, clinging, bossiness, getting up during the night, or any other age-inappropriate behaviors that look like they've regressed to a younger age. And these behaviors may seem to come out of the blue or be disproportionate to the situation or the trigger in the present. And that's something that I read at the beginning of COVID. My kids were getting up multiple times a night, and I'm like, why are they not sleeping all of a sudden? And then I think I read or heard this, that they kind of go back a couple years and they do things that would be like a younger kid would do because they're trying to figure things out and control things, and their whole lives have been disrupted. So if you see some of those behaviors, it's totally normal. It's hard not to get upset when you're getting woken up 4 times a night, but put them back to bed, reassure them, and just tell them they're safe.
So what do I do to help? Although these behaviors can be challenging in the moment, like Megan said, it is important to step back and recognize and acknowledge the emotion behind these behaviors. Try not to have a knee-jerk reaction. Count to 10 to yourself and try and stay calm. The most important thing is to provide children with a safe place to express their emotions. Try not to take their emotional outbursts personally. Sometimes the way you speak to your kids is done in a way and with a tone that you would never say in front of a friend or a boss, because if you did, you might lose that friendship or you might get fired from your job. Also, kids will blurt out and say awful things to you as parents that they would never say to their own peers, because again, they could lose that friendship. The reason we as parents and our kids talk that way in front of each other is because we know our kids are still going to love us. And our kids know that as parents, we are still going to love them. It does not make it right to speak to each other that way, but you are their safe place where they can lash out. And again, the most important thing is to provide children with a safe place to express their emotions. This time of connection with our child is an opportunity to focus on their emotions. We must take care not to use it as an opportunity to correct their behavior. We can do that at another time. If your child is hesitant or unable to talk about the event, find a way to talk about the emotions in a general way so they can express some of what they are feeling. For example, you can share what you think in a gentle way to help your child make sense of their experience, such as, things haven't been going well lately, lots of things are not working out the way we thought. Bringing up a general idea and focusing on the emotion of the frustration or alarm instead of fixing the problem helps your child begin to process those feelings. It is important to allow your child to express their feelings without consequences. So choose to ignore the symptom behaviors in order to focus on the feelings that need to be processed.
And the big question, is it okay for them to cry? I always say yes. The best way for kids to deal with deep emotions is through their tears. However, sometimes the only way for them to get to their tears is through the expression of frustration and fear, which often looks like snapping or yelling or being rude. We need to be able to give our kids the space to express their feelings. Not that being rude is okay, but if you get to the feelings there instead of the behavior, then you're gonna get to the tears. So I don't know, I'm sure you guys as parents have asked your kids, what's going on? They're nothing. Then all of a sudden they're crying and you're like, what? You just went from super mad to like bawling. What is going on? But that's how they're feeling. They want to cry and they don't know how to get there. So acknowledging their feelings and empathizing with their experience helps move our kids towards sadness and being able to express what they feel, especially in terms of what they've lost through COVID. It's important that we give our kids not only the space, but a place to be when they are experiencing strong emotions. While we may want to take away the pain, the best thing we can do is hold them and let them know we're there, that their emotions don't scare us, their behaviors and their attitudes don't scare us, and that they can lean on us, that we're big enough to handle their sadness.
Parenting can be difficult. No, it is difficult, especially in times of change and stress. So remember these 10 tips. 1, positive praise. 2, respond, don't react. 3, take a time out. 4, plan a little. 5, set loving limits. 6, give good directions. 7, repair and reset. 8, love on them. 9, be open and available. And number 10 is the most important one, take care of yourself.
Have you guys ever heard of Dr. Jody Carrington? Anybody? If you haven't, you need to look her up because I can't even describe her. She's so smart and so good with kids, and she has so many great parenting things. She's on YouTube all over the place. But she said, the only way you learn you matter. The only way you learn to regulate in times of stress is through relationship. Our greatest strength in times of stress is found in connecting with each other. Finding ways to connect with your family, with your kids during difficult times is so very important. If you can make connection your focus as you walk with your kids in the coming months and years, you will increase their resilience for future difficulties, help them create the neural pathways we talked about, the car tracks in their brain, to help self-regulate in times of stress, and teach them how to connect with others as they continue their journeys in life.
Good. So I don't know if there's any questions that anybody has, but we'd be happy to try and answer some of them for you.
Yes, I'm just going to repeat that for the people that are on the computer and couldn't hear you. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So he said basically it's going to take time for the kids to get used to the new everything, going back to school, getting up early, not watching TV all day and being super lazy, having to actually do schoolwork. Those things are going to take time. And he said it'll take 2 or 3 weeks for them to kind of get into that routine, and the parents too, to get back into that routine. I couldn't agree more. And it's just going to be structure. One of the things we talked about was routine and structure. And I know when COVID hit and the kids came home from school, that took a while for them to get used to. Even though they were doing nothing, they were just really unsettled. So it just took a while to get into the role of, okay, we're at home, we can't go out, we can't do anything. So it's just going to be kind of the flip, right? Okay, now we have to get up at whatever time, get on the bus, get to school, sit there and listen to somebody all day, where we haven't had to do that for 5 months. So yeah, it's going to be a transition for sure. And you'll probably see a lot of the behaviors that I talked about in that transition. They're going to come home, they're going to be exhausted, grumpy, probably rude. all the things when you're tired and stressed out, exactly the same behaviors. But as parents, we're like, well, I'm stressed and tired. That's why I'm behaving the way I am. You should not do that. So just make sure you give your kids a little bit of grace and expect some of those behaviors.
I think one of the best 2 words that I was given when I started working with youth is be flexible. And there is no normal right now. And the teachers, the principals, things that they start off with on Tuesday could be radically different the next Tuesday. So it's just has to have to go with the flow and help them to understand everybody's in the same boat. You're frustrated, the parents are frustrated, the teachers are frustrated, so it's just life, and it's a hard thing to go through, but we can do it and just try to take one day at a time. Don't look at the big picture and get overwhelmed, but just focus on today and do what you have to do today. Let tomorrow take care of itself, one day at a time. Other comments or questions?
Carly, that is teeny tiny.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, she's quite a bit younger than I am. That doesn't help. Megan, you spoke of behaviors that can show up in this later when kids have experienced stress and how to react. Is it safe to assume that as parents, similar behaviors could show up? And what would you recommend to partners as far as keeping each other in check? Oh, okay. Yes, that was months that I was trying to read. That can show up even months later. I think I just said, like, we're all going to be stressed. I've been at work the whole time. I took about a month where I worked at home, but I've been at work the whole time, and things at work are fluid. They're changing all the time. I feel like I'm kind of stressed a little bit with some of the things that I have to change and do differently. And we counsel on Zoom now, where I prefer to be face to face with people so I can see their eyes and it's easier to empathize. So I think absolutely with our situations as parents and our jobs and all the changes that we have to deal with, we're going to have some of the similar behaviors, right? So like Jim was talking about apologizing. If we snap at our kids, we have to be able to go up to them and say, hey, I snapped at you and I shouldn't have, and I am sorry. And then...
Can you please forgive me? Well, I think that's important that they understand that, because you're going to do the same thing to them.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, you can ask them to forgive you and then have the conversation without a but, like, how are you feeling? How am I feeling? Maybe they need to know why you're stressed in like kid language a little bit. So, things at work are changing and it's a little bit harder and I have to do things differently, and it makes me feel scared or it makes me feel anxious. And give them some of those words so that they learn how to talk about their emotions. And I know I do it a little bit with my kids, and they're really good at giving me a hug and empathizing. And then their emotional vocabularies are building each day as I share with them how I'm feeling. So I guess it's kind of good that we're also going through the same stuff as our kids, because then we can teach them, this is how you talk about it, and it's okay to feel like that, as long as, you don't excuse your behavior. Yeah, I can be stressed out. Should I snap at you? No, and I'm sorry. So, yeah, an apology is big. Oh, keeping our partners in check. That was the rest of the question. You can answer that part.
Well, I think it's important, obviously, for parents to be on the same page, and lots of times we aren't. And discussing it in front of the kids isn't the time. But, the old adage where, Johnny goes to mom and asks for $10 and she says no, and then he goes to dad and dad gives him $10. So there's that battle that goes on. And it's the same thing, I think, with discussion. There has to be good communication. That's going to be the key. And for a lot of couples, this is really stressful because there hasn't maybe been good communication to start with. And so I was just reading today, divorce is up 34% since March in the United States. And that shows me that They've been together, they're there together a long time, but they're not able to communicate. Things are falling apart. So that's something that parents have to work on and choose to disagree on some things, but to make sure that they're a team in front of the kids. You know, you got to back each other up. So if Johnny comes and asks Mom for $10 and she says no, and then he goes to Dad, Dad's response is, "What did your mother say?" Well, she said no. Well, then the answer is no. You know, so just try and help each other out that way. But communicate on things and try and pick the things that are really important that's going to affect the kids. It's not a pride thing where the dad won or mom won or, you know, your partner won and you didn't. But what's best for the kid here? How are we going to help our kid the best? Because we can articulate and express ourselves pretty good as adults, but the kids, they're battling these emotions. They don't know how to describe it. And they need mom and dad to be there, to be that safe place so that they're not feeling stressed at home like they're feeling at school and other places.
And I do think it's okay if you hear your partner say something to your kids that bothers you. So if they snap at your kids or yell at your kids and you're like, I don't like how that just went down, to take them aside away from the kids and say, you know, when I heard you say that, I got kind of upset. I saw that they got kind of upset. Can we talk about that? You know, how you handled that, how it could have been different, why you did that, and have a discussion around that, which is hard to hear when you're on the other side of the discussion. And somebody's telling you that you did something that they don't like. But I think that gives you guys a chance, or gives couples a chance to talk about how are we parenting these kids and what's the best, like Jim said, what's the best thing for them. But that's a hard conversation. Mm-hmm.
I think another thing that's important too is iMessages when you're talking as parents. And I'm not talking about a phone, but just an example. Let's say you say, "Johnny, clean up your room." The next day you look and his room's a mess. "Johnny, clean up your room." And then the third day, his room's a mess. "Johnny, clean up your room." Fourth day, "Okay, Johnny, you're grounded for a month." Well, Johnny's going to slam the door and cuss and go into the room. But if you use an iMessage, maybe after the second or the third day, you say, "No, Johnny, I've asked you 3 days in a row to clean your room, and I'm feeling angry and uptight, and I feel like yelling and screaming at you, and I don't want to do that. Can you please help me to understand why you're not cleaning up your room?" When you use an iMessage, you're expressing how you're feeling. So even as you're talking with your partner back and forth, try to use the iMessages, you know, to your husband or your wife. Like, "I'm really feeling frustrated when you talk to the kids that way. I get anxious and upset, and can you help me to understand, you know, why you're using that tone with them?" You know, an example I've used before, if let's say my wife made spaghetti and meatballs for supper, and I took a couple of bites of the spaghetti and I burned my tongue and my stomach was really upset. And if I say, you know, "Jeepers, Donnie, what are you trying to do? Kill me? Like, what's with all the hot sauce?" Well, she's going to get pretty uptight, and I'll probably end up with a pot of spaghetti over my head. But if I use an iMessage, I might say, "You know, hon, I really appreciate the spaghetti, the dinner you made tonight, but I burned my tongue and my stomach's really upset. You think maybe next time we can just leave the hot sauce on the table and we'll add as much to our plates as we want?" Okay, that way she's not going to get defensive, but because she's heard how it made me feel. So if we can use iMessages in our communication, I think that will help prevent the partner or the kids from becoming defensive and lashing out, or you're going to hopefully resolve the problem by using iMessages.
For families who have just moved to Canada and their parenting styles are different from the Canadian norm, what would be the best way for them to handle this? Excellent question.
To handle what? The COVID?
Yeah,
the
just
whole
all
thing?
the stress that's going on right now.
Yeah.
That's
And just in general, she's wondering.
in general.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, I don't know. I guess get some help. The Welcome Center is available. They'll have some answers for you. Also in school, letting the teachers know that it's different and you're not sure of the customs or the expectations. Having somebody that could maybe assist. There's counselors at the schools as well that could maybe guide and assist and help in that way, would maybe be part of it. Or just I mean, you can come down to the center and we can try and discuss and help you through some things. Maybe there's people, like if you've come here from another country, maybe there's fellow countrymen who are here now that have been here longer. And if you can try and hook up with them as families and see how they adjusted and how they did it, that would be helpful as well.
I think sometimes there's differences. And I think for the kids, maybe it's confusing because I would imagine they go to like a Canadian family's home and things are a bit different, and then they come home and things are different there, and they're like, well, these kids get to do this and we can't do this, or you do this different and they do it. Like, yeah, having those discussions with people who have been here for a while and have made those transitions or adjustments, or because you don't want to lose things that are important to your family and customs and cultural things that are beautiful about different countries. You don't want to lose those things, but you want your kids to be able to appreciate them here where it's different, sort of. I don't even know if there's a normal. Everybody's families are so different. Maybe that's what kids need to realize. Like even my kids, there is no normal. Every single person that I know, their family runs differently. They have different ways of doing things. They have different religions and different family makeups and dynamics. And I don't know if anything is just like everybody in Canada does it like this. I don't think we do.
Yeah, my normal was different than my wife's normal growing up. You know, we only have one normal. That's all we know. And that's when we start going to school or seeing what other kids do, that's when we realize that they can be a little bit different, you know. But yeah, there's just, with all the COVID and everything, the unknown is so great that that's going to probably amplify the problems a little bit more and the frustrations. But I guess, like I said, communication is probably the biggest one, and don't be ashamed or afraid to ask for help. Don't be timid, or like, it's okay to ask for help. My car breaks down tomorrow, I can't fix it, I got to go to a mechanic. It's the same for all of us in different areas. You know, we have different strengths and abilities, so seek that help to get answers to your questions.
Okay. Can they give any suggestions or tips to parents whose kids will be doing online learning? Ooh. And the kids will continue to be isolated and withdrawn. Do you want to speak first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I would imagine there's some way for those kids to connect with other people, whether it's on a computer, on a phone, some way to connect with somebody else. And that's the most important thing. At the beginning of COVID, when we were kind of all isolated into our houses, I put my kids on Kids Messenger, and I connected them only with their friends. They couldn't connect with anybody else that I didn't approve of. So that just kept them, they could video call each other or message each other, play games together. That just kept them connected with somebody that they know. So, yeah. So in terms of like their social circle of friends that they won't be getting at school, you can figure it out with technology, and then families got to kind of step in. Like the things that you do together as a family when you're separated from the rest of your social circle will become even more important. So, you know, if you can, eating supper together, doing the activities like I talked about, doing crafts together, building things, taking walks together, getting outside together. Your family is super important. And then connecting them with also extended family is even more important. Because I think sometimes we get isolated, we forget about our extended families, and they're really key to keeping us feeling connected with who we are, really. And when we're isolated, that's the first thing to go, like, who am I? Who am I when there's nobody else around? So if you can just keep your kids connected with grandparents and aunts and uncles and siblings, if they have siblings away at university, those kinds of things are super important.
I think too, if there's opportunities to try and hook them up, if they're online a lot with friends outside of the home. The center's going to be opening up here next week again. Maybe they can come and, with a friend, you know, arrange times where they can come for an hour or two and get a hold of a couple of friends so that they can interact here with the kids. I mean, they have the social distancing, there's no sports teams and maybe some of the clubs, so it's limited, but maybe there's a few opportunities like that to get them involved as well.
Get up here, Carly.
Right. Oh. So I'm just gonna quickly read this, but you want me to pull? Oh. My coworker just wanted to point out that the return to school has been very positive. Kids are craving peer interaction. So she's in Alberta right now and has witnessed kids returning to school, and every kid or teenager that she has seen on a bus or biking to school has had the hugest smile on their face. And the news also in Calgary interviewed a lot of students and parents, and they all had good things to say. So just something to think about.
Look forward to.
Yes, something I'll look forward to.
I think that's it for right now.
I'll piggyback on that, actually. How are you guys feeling about your kids going back to school? Yes. He said that they've decided they were initially going to keep their kids, both of them, home, keep them both home and have them do school online. And then they decided that maybe they would send them back so that the kids could socialize. And they were worried about some mental health issues if they get too isolated or further isolated with depression or things like that. So they made the decision as a family to send their kids back to school. And I'm assuming that you guys are just kind of work through all the anxiety that comes along with that. Yeah, and I think you know your kids the best. Some kids would be fine online learning, being at home wouldn't be an issue. Some kids, that's going to push them into further isolation, and as a parent, that can be kind of scary. So, like, good on you for making the best decision for your kids. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of the clients that are attending online are based in rural areas around Southwest Saskatchewan, or around Southwest area, and so they're just wondering, like, if they're doing online learning, which I think the majority of them are, mm-hmm. like, what would you suggest for them to do? Because I mean, in some rural areas, there's no center and
right.
places like this to hang out and get together. So what would you guys suggest?
Well, even if possible, after school, inviting a couple of kids over, you know, that are friends with them, so that they can, after the online time, getting together, inviting kids over for a movie and popcorn, if they can do that, if there's kind of social distancing or having some kind of connection. Even a Zoom party sometimes can be fun for kids. You get 4 or 5 kids to Zoom together and laugh and joke. And my 5-year-old granddaughter FaceTimes Nana and Papa all the time, and she'll walk around for 20 minutes and talk. And you know, but so if you have a bunch of friends like that, that's maybe something you can do early as well.
Yeah. My teenager was freaking out about not being around her friends, and that's what they did. They all watched a movie together on, I don't even remember what it was called because I'm not that cool, but on one of those kind of social media platforms, and they all watched it at the same time, and they could hear each other talking. And she said it was the best because she hadn't seen her friends or talked to them really. And mm-hmm. So yeah, even just watching a movie virtually together, which isn't as fun as being together, but it's better than nothing.
And then another question is, can you guys talk about disciplining children the acceptable Canadian way? Because I mean, with different cultures, there are different ways to discipline kids. So in Canada, it's quite a bit different from certain other countries. So if you wanted to just maybe chat about that a little bit.
Yes, I'll start, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Socially acceptable, I think, is a range of, it depends on your kids. your personality, how, you know, the rules in your home, what's important in your home. That being said, generally speaking, I would say that Canadians probably use more rewards and punishments system to discipline. So I often hear, clean up your room or you're going to be grounded, like Jim said. If you don't do this, you're going to have a punishment. That's typical. Is it the best way? I don't know that I'd react really well for some, like if I came to work and my boss was like, you have to see all your clients today or you are going to have to clean the bathrooms. Well, that's weird. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, you know, this is my expectation today or all the time. That's what I expect. If you don't do it, we'll discuss that. So sometimes it's taking away video games or taking away phones or taking away interactions with friends, those sorts of things. For good behaviors, yeah, rewards. Let's go out and get an ice cap, or take you for ice cream, or we'll play a board game, or you can stay up half an hour later. You know, that's typical sort of discipline.
When I came home in grade 9, I had a D in my report card, and my dad said, Jimmy, you get any more Ds, no more sports. That was the last D I ever got. He hit me where it hurt. So that's the key, I think, in disciplining is what's going to hurt. If you tell your kid you're grounded, go to your room, and they've got a TV and a VCR and movies, and that's not a discipline. But I think it's agreeing too, having them involved in the discipline. For example, if your kid has a 10 o'clock curfew and they come in at 11 o'clock and you say, okay, I'm too mad right now, we're going to talk about this tomorrow morning. You get up and you say, okay, you know, your curfew was 10, you came home at 11, you didn't call or let us know. We didn't know if you were lying in a ditch somewhere or if something had happened to you. And let's pretend you're the parent, okay, and I'm the kid, and I came in an hour after curfew. What do you think the punishment should be? Well, maybe he says, well, maybe my curfew will be 9 o'clock next time. And if it's something you can agree on as a family, then the next time, okay, your curfew's 9 o'clock, the next time you go out. So when it's 8:45, Johnny looks at his clock. He's making that choice to know that if he comes in after 9, there's going to be discipline. There's going to be a punishment that you've agreed upon. But if he comes in and he's home at 9 o'clock for the next 2 or 3 times, you say, okay, Johnny, you proved to me that you can do this. We're going to extend your curfew to 10 o'clock again. So you're rewarding him as well. But if they're involved in the agreement of what the punishment will be, and maybe for a kid, the bike is his big thing. Okay, so if you pull your sister's hair again, or if you don't listen, what do you think a fair punishment should be? Well, maybe you take my bike away for 2 days. So again, and then if they do it, they're making that choice. It's not something that you're coming down on. They already know what the consequence is going to be when they do it. So they're making that choice. And I think, again, if you can get your kids involved in the decision making and the consequences plus the rewards, like Megan was saying, hey, Johnny, you've gone a whole week, you haven't bugged your sister, you know, we're going to the Dairy Queen for ice cream, you know, having that involved as well.
Aaliyah was just saying that when she goes to visit with people, sometimes they talk about spanking, hitting kids, yelling at kids, and in some countries that is a completely acceptable way of disciplining. In Canada, there's laws against a lot of those things. So definitely hitting kids, mentally abusing, emotionally abusing. So saying things that are really hurtful and tear down the kid. There's laws against those things. And then there was something else there. Yeah, child protection. So Jim and I actually work with the Ministry of Social Services and the child protection workers. And they're actually a fantastic bunch of people. And their job is to keep kids safe. And their main focus is to keep families together. So if there's something that happens where there's a discipline that isn't acceptable in Canada, there would be counseling or education around that, and the family would be kept together. Like, that is their goal, is to keep families together. So they're not a scary bunch of people at all. They're there to protect your kids.
And the other thing I want to say, if that is the case with our families, they can always, if they're unsure, come talk to us at the Welcome Center
Okay.
and express how they're feeling. We're not counselors, but we can advocate with them.
Absolutely, yeah. So Leah said that if that's something that's going on, then they're there at the Welcome Center for you guys to talk to, ask questions, and get some advice and help and direction in that.
I'm here at the
But we're not
center,
counselors.
But they're not counselors, but we are, so you can come and talk to us.
It's a free service.
And yeah.
Refer.
And yeah, the counseling at the center is a free service that we provide for the community. So we're always available to talk to you as parents or to kids who are struggling. The one thing I wanted to say in terms of discipline, my kind of rule of thumb is always focus on connection. So if you're looking at some sort of discipline and it's making your kid not want to be around you, not want to be near you in the long term. I mean, you know, when I punish my kids by sending them to their room, they're like, I hate you, I don't want to be around you. Yeah, I know, because you don't like what I have to say right now. But in the long term, if it makes them scared of you, not actually like you, and it doesn't connect you, it's probably not an effective form of discipline. And just an example for Jim's comment on bringing the kids into the discipline or the consequences that come out of that. My 9-year-old son has made a few odd choices in the last year, and so we've had some conversations, and one day we thought he was at the skate park, and a friend convinced him to ride his bike to Walmart, which would be across the number 1 highway. So it took about a week for us to figure out exactly where he'd been, but eventually the truth came out, and I actually had to take a time out and go to a friend's house and talk it out. How am I going to deal with this? And then I came home and I sat down with him in his room, and I said, okay, my job as a parent is to keep you safe. You did this. How do we deal with this? He's 9. And he was like crying, and he didn't want to look at me. And I said, we need to come up with a consequence, because that was a pretty major thing. So what do you think some of the consequences should be? And he came up with much stricter consequences than I would have. He's like, I shouldn't hang out with that friend for a month. Yes, that's right. You shouldn't hang out. Like, I wouldn't have said a month. I might have said 2 weeks. And then, you know, some more consequences that he came up with that were pretty insightful and took things away from him that were valuable to him. So time with friends. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere without asking, which is a normal thing, but he had to like come back and check in like at more regular times. So if you bring them in on the consequences, they're usually harder on themselves than you would be. And then they own it. They're like, oh yeah, I picked that. I decided I can't see my friend for a month. So they stick to it. It's insane. Like, I never thought it would happen. He stuck to his consequences because he helped pick them out.
Yeah, and for me and maybe some of the adults, you grew up with dad saying it's my way or the highway. There was no discussion. That was the consequences. So this is a nice change, and again, a connection change where you can talk with your kid and reasonably work it out reasonably, and they feel part of the solution. And when they're attached in that way, like Megan says, they're going to follow through on it.
2 questions. Can families connect with you guys through online counseling? And the second question is, do you guys have tips for encouraging children who are doing online learning? So like to make sure they're actually doing it, because I mean, online learning is very different from in-person learning, and you have to have like the motivation to do it. So those were the questions. I don't know if people could hear me, but.
I'll do the first one. Yes, call the center, 306-774 773-3344, and you can book a time, and Megan and I will be happy to try and assist in any way we can.
Can you book online? So you can go on our website as well, And there's a link for counseling, and on there you can actually, my virtual calendar is on the website, so you can actually book yourself a time. And if you want to have a Zoom session, if you're not in Swift Current and you don't want to drive here, you can just put in the notes Zoom session, and then I'll set you up and we'll do everything on computer so you don't have to leave the comfort of your house. And it's actually super cool. So I know there's people in Frontier and East End and small towns that don't want to make the drive in, Shaunavon, Maple Creek, that
Manitoba, Alberta.
yeah, actually, I had a kid in BC this summer and we connected every week. So Zoom is a pretty amazing thing. So
What's the website?
the website is, I don't know. That's a great question.
SCCYI.ca.
The website is SCCYI.ca. That's like when someone asks you your phone number and you're like, I don't know, I never phoned myself.
And if they ever have, like, need help navigating through that, Swiss can always help with that as well.
Right. If you need help, Swiss is there.
And then tips for
Online learning.
encouraging online learning.
Well, maybe just trying to have incentives and perks. There's an adage, you know, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Try to put the assignments maybe and the expectations of what they have to do for work in bite-sized pieces, and when that's accomplished, maybe there's some incentive or a reward of some kind that they get it done in a certain time. And then there's always tutors that they can connect with too if they are struggling that way. Maybe to get incentive, to get tips. Is it because they don't understand, or they're just frustrated because they got to sit in front of a computer? I'm not sure what the reasons are, but that would be part of it, I guess.
Yeah. And I think I touched a little bit on that in terms of little kids, but it would be the same with older kids who are online. So if you can help them organize, you know, where are your big assignments, put them on a calendar so they can visually see them. This is when this assignment's due, this is when this one's due. Okay, and then break it down a little more. So just help them be organized, and then bring them in on like, okay, let's make a list of things that we can do when you accomplish, like, you've done the first chapter of math or whatever. What's a cool thing you want to do? You want to like, what? You want to play Monopoly with me or Scrabble? Yeah, you do. Okay, like they'll pick something much cooler than that, but maybe they want to play a video game with you, or maybe they just want to go play a video game for half an hour. So some kind of a reward for getting that chunk of work done. I don't know. Yeah, something fun that they want to do. That's what I do when I have work. I'm like, I'll do this, and then I'll go for a coffee, and then I'll do this, and then I'll go for a coffee. And then I just do that like 4 times a day, and then all my work gets done. You know, you just throw in fun stuff, and then you get your stuff done.
I think when there's incentive, there's more motivation too. Like if you think, not now, but you know, in February I'm going to Hawaii for a week. You're trudging through some stuff at work. You think, okay, I know I've only 6 more weeks, 7 more weeks, I'm going to Hawaii. It helps you to get through that week. And it's maybe the same for kids. If there is something that they can look forward to, if I get this done, you know, we're going to Boston Pizza or whatever, that might be some incentive for them too to carry on. Well, again, the Welcome Center and the center are both open and available, so please feel free to call them. The Welcome Center phone number is,
Oh, there's lots of different.
what's the main one?
306-778-6262.
Yeah. She's got it.
778
6262.
6262. And the center again is 773-3344.
Awesome. Thanks you guys for listening and coming, and we really appreciate you showing up.
Thank you for inspiring us, for giving a lot of information.
Yeah.
When is the next, is there a time, there's going to be more sessions on different topics coming in the future?
Yep, nothing set in stone yet, but we'll let them know.
Okay, nothing's set in stone yet, but we'll let you know when the next one is. Thank you. Have a good night.